All right, good morning, everybody. Good to be with you today. Today we are diving into to the next story of our pre-Arthurian literature cycle, or the next story cycle of pre-Arthurian literature that we're covering. We're going to be looking at the ancient Hebrew epic of King David. I want to set the stage for you a little bit about where the story takes place and what the surrounding culture was like at the time, and then we will dive into this very influential literary masterpiece. So we're going back to about 1000 BC, right? So we're just a little over 3,000 years ago. At this point, we're in the nation of Israel, and it's about 300 years after the Exodus. So in the Exodus, the Hebrew people were enslaved in Egypt. Moses leads them to freedom. They wander for 40 years, and then Moses dies. He's succeeded by a warrior by the name of Joshua. Joshua conquers this territory that becomes the nation of Israel. The nation at the time is still governed tribally. There's no central government, right? You've got 12 tribes, each of which have their own territory, each of which take care of their own business. They share a common language. They share common religious traditions. One of the tribes, the tribe of Levi, provides the priests and religious leaders throughout the country, but it's still very much organized on a tribal and clan and family-based structure. Every so often, when there's an emergency, a warlord will emerge. And at least the way the Hebrew scriptures describe the warlords, they give them the title of judges. And what these judges will do is they will have temporary control, power over multiple tribes, sometimes even the whole nation, to deal with the emergency. And then they step away. The book of Judges in the Hebrew Bible is fascinating, and it has some of the oldest material in the Hebrew Bible. Some really fascinatingly archaic things go on in the book of Judges. There's a battle where the sun stands still in the sky. There's another battle, despite the fact that later Hebrew and Jewish tradition will be very much against images of God. There's one battle in the book of Judges where they carry the statue of God out onto the battlefield, and they win the battle because of the power of the statue. Another one where it says that their enemy, I think the Philistines, was able to defeat God because they had iron chariots. So you can definitely see that the high monotheistic concept of God that the Jewish people are famous for is still very much in development. Judges has very old material in it. Some of the judges have superpowers, like Samson, the mighty strong warrior, sort of the Hebrew. I don't mean that the stories are directly related, but the Hebrew equivalent of Hercules, he's one of the judges. There's at least one female judge. Her name's Deborah. So a rare, mighty warrior woman figure in the biblical story. Where we come into this story, we're right at the end of this period. All right, so Israel is still tribally governed, still no central government. The judge at the time is named Samuel. Samuel holds three roles at the same time. So he's this warlord, this temporary leader who has authority over multiple tribes. He's also a Levite and a priest, and he's also a prophet. The prophets in the early Hebrew prophets are people who normally don't hold official roles in society. They're people who are chosen, who have special gifts, who are believed to proclaim messages that come from the God of Israel outside the normal structures of the government or of the priesthood. But Samuel in himself plays all three roles. He is the great judge, he is the great priest, and he is the great prophet. And our story picks up when he is also very, very old. So let's begin. So we're starting from this. This is pieced together from several sources, although the sources are all related. They're all sequels to one another. So we're beginning with the first book of Samuel. When Samuel became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah. There were judges in Beersheba, it's a town. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain. Political corruption is nothing new. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then, this is going to be Miles. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him,
Behold, you are old, and the sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations.
But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, they have rejected me from being king over them. According to all the deeds that they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are also doing to you. Now then, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. So Samuel, who's my Samuel? Come on. So Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king from him. He said,
These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots and to be his horsemen and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands, commanders of 50s, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his servants. He will take the tenth of your grain and of your vineyards, and give it to his officers and to his servants. He will take your male servants and female servants, and the best of your young men and your donkeys, and put them to work. He will take the tenth of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you in that day.
What you have playing out here is something that we still deal with. There's this tension built in, certainly explicitly built into our own society and the U.S. Constitution, and probably built into any conceivable system of government. And that is the tension between freedom and security. The more centralized government power you have, the more you can be protected, but the less free you are. So the question, how do we strike that balance? That's what, if you remember from civics or U.S. government in the founding generation of our republic, if you remember the Federalist Papers, if you remember all those debates, and if you listen to not the name-calling nonsense that this particular campaign has devolved into, but if you listen to the actual disagreements between what's called conservatism and what's called liberalism in our own republic today, that's still the question. How strong should the central authority be versus how much should be left to states, communities, families? When the people say, we want a king so we can be just like the other nations, you've got the religious interpretation that's very explicit in the text. Shouldn't surprise you that religious interpretations are explicit in a text from the Bible. That shouldn't surprise you. But there's a social contract thing going on here too, in that the people are willing to sacrifice a degree of their own autonomy. They're rejecting God as king over them, is the way the text interprets it, but they're rejecting themselves as their own rulers too. They're rejecting local decision making. And Samuel says, look, you want a king, this is what he's going to be like. I'll give you your king, but this is what's going to happen. He's going to take and take and take and take from you, and there's not going to be anything you can do about it. The way Samuel describes what this king's going to be like, this is not coincidence. Who does that king sound like? Hint, he's the only king we've talked about so far. No, we haven't talked about King Arthur yet. Gilgamesh, yes. The abuses that Gilgamesh is committing on the people that drive the whole plot of the Epic of Gilgamesh, that is exactly what Samuel says is going to happen when the Israelites ask for a king. But the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, tell us they.
They said, no, but there shall be a king over us. 20.
You don't have to read your
that we that, but there shall be no king over us, there that we also may be like all the nations. No, it's like my screen glitched out, sir. In all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles.
And when Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, obey their voice and make them a king. Samuel then said to the men of Israel,
Go every man to his city. ...
A king is chosen. That king's name is Saul. Shaul in the Hebrew, but Saul is so basic. So we better call Saul. It's Better Call Saul time. And you're Saul, right? Yeah. Come forth.
Wait, and he's Walter White.
When Saul had taken the kingship over Israel, he with his son Jonathan fought against all his enemies at every side, against Moab, against the Ammonites, against Edom, against the kings of Zobah, against the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he routed them. And he did valiantly and struck the Amalekites and delivered Israel out of the hands of those who plundered them. There was hard fighting against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he attached him to himself. And Samuel said to Saul, and Samuel said to Saul,
The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people Israel. Now therefore listen to the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I have noted what Amalek did to Israel in opposing them on the way when they came up out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and a donkey.
What we're encountering here, this is not that I've committed all of these texts to memory, but I have spent my fair share of time in these texts. So this is the darkest moment in the Hebrew Scriptures. Samuel, speaking for the God of Israel, has commanded Saul to commit genocide against the Amalekites. You kill everyone, man, woman, child, babies, animals. Everyone is to die. Why? Because 300 years earlier, when the liberated Hebrew slaves were conquering this land, the ancestors of the Amalekites stood against the Hebrews. And so now their descendants 300 years later are being punished with a complete extermination order. I've lost my spot on the page. Miles, it's contagious. So Saul summoned the people, thank you. So Saul summoned the people and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 men on foot and 10,000 men of Judah. Judah is one of the southernmost tribes of Israel. It's the largest of the tribes and will eventually become its own nation, and it's where the Jewish people get their name from. And Saul came to the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the valley. Then Saul said to the Kenites, his allies,
Go, depart, go down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you showed kindness to all people of Israel when they came up out of Egypt.
So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites, and Saul defeated the Amalekites. So, Cameron, get up here. You don't have to say anything. Just get up here and let her kill you. You stand for all the Amalekites. Just kill him because how slow he's walking. Finish him. I like that, yeah. And, yeah, die. Yeah. And Saul defeated the Amalekites from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt. And he took, okay, Cameron, you're dead, so go back to your seat. And he took, where's my Agag? Agag, come on up here. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and devoted to destruction all the people with the edge of the sword. So you are a prisoner, Agag. You were Saul's prisoner. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and of the oxen and of the fattened calves and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. All that was despised and worthless they devoted to destruction. The word of the Lord came to Samuel. I regret that I have made Saul king, for he has turned back from following me and has not performed my commandments. I'm making no comment whatsoever, Tyler, no comment whatsoever on how to interpret this, but simply as story, what's happening in the story is God has rejected King Saul for the crime of not committing genocide. And Samuel was angry, and he cried to the Lord all night. And Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning. And it was told Samuel by the people.
It was told to Samuel, but where were we?
Saul came to Carmel.
Oh, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up the monument for himself and turned and passed on and went down to Gilgal.
And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him,
Blessed be you to the Lord. I have bleating of the sheep in my ears, and I did? Oh, I have performed the commandment of the Lord.
And Samuel said,
What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the oxen that I hear?
I mean, that's as straightforward as can be. Saul's like, hey, I did what you said. I killed everybody and everything. I killed all the people. I killed all the animals. Meanwhile, and he's like, what are the sheep? What are these sheep I hear if you killed everybody? Jerk. They have, and Saul said,
They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the destruction.
hang on, you missed, you're jumping over line again.
Oh my god.
What?
They just start over.
Okay. They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have devoted to the destruction.
Stop. I will tell you what the Lord said to me this night.
And Saul said, speak. Samuel said,
Though you are little in your own eyes, are you not the head of the tribes of Israel? Wow. The Lord anointed you king over Israel, and the Lord sent you on a mission and said, Go, devote to destruction the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them till they are consumed. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you pounce on the soil and do what was evil in the sight of the Lord?
I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. I have gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me. I have brought Agag, the king of the Amalek, and have devoted the Amalekites to destruction. But the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the best of the things devoted to destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal.
So Saul's making excuses here, and there's no way to know for sure how much what he's saying is true. He's in charge, but he's blaming the people. Well, no, I told them to kill everybody, and they spared some people, and they spared some of the best animals, and he's saying, but we spared these animals because we're going to offer them in sacrifice to the Lord. Animal sacrifice is part of the Israelite tradition at this time. Does he really mean that? Is it just his excuse now that he's busted? Well, according to Samuel, Samuel's not going to care one way or the other, are you, Samuel?
Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king.
I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Now, therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me, that I may bow before the Lord.
I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel.
As Samuel turned to go away, Saul seized the skirt of his robe, and it tore. And Samuel said to him,
The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day, and has given it to a neighbor of yours, who is better than you. And also the glory of Israel will not lie or have regret, for he is not a man that he should have regret.
I have sinned, yet honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me, that I may bow before the Lord your God.
So Samuel turned back after Saul, and Saul bowed before the Lord. Then Samuel said,
Bring here to me Agag, the king of the Amalekites.
And Agag came to him cheerfully. And Agag said, turn the microphone around.
All right.
Light toward your face. The light toward your face.
Hello.
And Agag said,
Surely the bitterness of death is past.
and Samuel said,
As your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women.
Here, you want to set that down for a minute? You want to take that? And Samuel hacked Agag to pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. Finish him. You got to die. And Samuel went to, and Samuel, and your arms and legs have to come off, dude. You're doing such a bad job. I'm kidding. Take your legs off. Do you even care? Do you even care about this class? Earn your grade. Then Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went up to his house in Gibeah of Saul. And Samuel did not see Saul again until the day of his death, but Samuel grieved over Saul, and the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. There's an interesting dynamic here that Saul has been rejected, divinely rejected, but not yet. You will lose your power, you will lose your throne, and you will lose your kingdom, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it'll happen whenever. Go about your business. You're still king now. Good luck. Good luck keeping your sanity, right? Now, there's a sense in which that's all of us. The sword hangs over all of us, and none of us know when the final day will come. But to have that proclaimed directly to your face, you are going to fall, you are going to be destroyed, you can't do anything about it, but not today. That's sort of a chilling way to live, I would imagine. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And Saul's servants said to him,
Behold now, a harmful spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord now command your servants, who are before you, to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre. And when the harmful spirit from God is upon you, he will play it, and you will be well.
Anybody, when you get upset, is music anybody's go-to? Calm you down or to soothe you when you get upset? Yeah, that's not a new phenomenon. So the king has anxiety, the king is being tormented by demons, and the solution is, let's find a musician. Let's find someone who can play and sing for him and bring him some peace. What's up? Yeah, he did. And so there's, anyway. But yes, it's a good point. So Saul said to his servants,
Provide for me a man who can play well and bring him to me.
One of the young men answered, Behold, I've seen a son of Jesse, a shepherd from Bethlehem in Judah, who is skillful in playing, a man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, and a man of good presence, and the Lord is with him. Therefore Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, I guess these would be the messengers. That'll be Miles. You two the messengers of Saul. Where's Jesse? Oh, that's Eli.
Send me David your son, who is with the sheep.
And I don't think you're saying anything yet, Eli, but this is Jesse here. And Jesse took a donkey laden with bread and a skin of wine and a young goat, and he sent them by David his son to Saul. And David came to Saul and entered his service. And Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying,
Let David remain in my service, for he has found favor in my sight.
And whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre and played it with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him. That's quite an endorsement of the power of music in life. That you've got this man who's literally being tormented by demons, but when the song, you kids these days, you still say slaps? Yes. When the song slaps hard enough, when the song, is it okay? Does the song eat if it's really good? No, okay. When the song's tough, when the song's gas, when the song's fire, it has the power to console even someone like Saul. But Saul did not know. But Saul did not know that Samuel had foreseen that it was David who would replace him as king. Now, okay, Jesse, you can sit down. Now the Philistines are very long time enemy of the Israelites. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Soka, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Soka and Azekah in Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah and drew up in line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And there came out of the camp, we're going to need Tyler, there came out of the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 9 feet 2 inches. And I was going to have Angelica beat Goliath, but she couldn't be bothered to come to school today. Whose height was 9 feet 2 inches. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had bronze armor on his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and his shield bearer went before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel.
Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let them come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us.
Oh no. And the Philistines, you're the Philistine. So just keep going.
If I defy the ranks of Israel this day, give me a man, that we may fight together.
When Saul and all of Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons. In the days of Saul, the man was already old and advanced in years. Jesse, not David. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had followed Saul to the battle. And the names of the 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 eldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine Goliath came forward and took his stand morning and evening. And Jesse said to David, his son,
take for your brothers an ephah of this parched grain, and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to camp to your brothers. Also take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their thousands. See if your brothers are well, and bring some token from them.
See what's going on? David's the youngest. Thank you, Jesse. I think that's all we need from you. So David's older brothers are mighty warriors, going to battle with... Nothing we're doing right now involves typing, my friends. Are mighty warriors fighting on behalf of Saul. David, the youngest, what's his job? Bring him cheese. That's your job in this war. Bring cheese to your brothers who are the real men. That's how David really enters the story at this point. Now, what's up?
Oh no, I was gonna say I'm like really familiar with the story because my mom likes watching it a lot during Easter time or my birthday. Sure. And it's like during that time, their brothers didn't see what their father saw in David. Yeah. He saw leadership and he saw a lot of like commitment. Like he saw that he knows the time to take responsibility. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's precisely what's going on here. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper and took the provisions and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the encampment as the host was going out to battle, shouting the war cry. And Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. And David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage and ran to the ranks and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, behold, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words of before. And David heard him. All the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were much afraid. And the men of Israel said,
Have you seen the man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel.
And David said to the men who stood by him, What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in the same way.
So shall it be done to the man who kills him.
Now Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to them. Who's my brother? Who's Eliab? Come on. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. I've lost my spot. Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said,
Why have you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle.
And David said, What have I done now? Typical argument between brothers, right? Only this brother just made a fool of himself because younger brother happens to be King David. Spoiler.
Who do you think you're talking to?
And my stupid comment, not that I made a comment, is I've lost. What have I done now? Was it not a word? What have I done now? I'm just saying. And he turned away from him toward another and spoke in the same way. And the people answered him again as before. When the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. We're done with you, Eliab. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said,
You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth.
See, they should call me a youth. Your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb for the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who has delivered me from the paw of the lion and of the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine.
Go, and the Lord be with you.
Then Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail. And David strapped his sword over his armor, and he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Thanks, Saul. And David said to Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them. So he doesn't take the sword. He doesn't take the sword or, move this, please. He doesn't take the sword or the armor. Then he took his staff in hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. And the Philistine moved forward and came near to David with his shield bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. You see why I'm playing the role. Ruddy and handsome in appearance. And the Philistine said to David,
Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?
And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David,
Come to me, and I will give you your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the field.
You come to me with a sword and a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves, not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. When the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his back and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. There was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of its sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled, and the men of Israel and Judah rose with a shout and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way from Sha'arim as far as Gath and Ekron. And the people of Israel came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but put his armor in his tent. As soon as David, just a little bit more, I want to get to a certain point that's real close. As soon as David had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was knit to the soul of David. And Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword, and his bow, and his belt. And David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, so that Saul set him over the men of war. And this was good in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. So David becomes very closely bonded with Saul's son Jonathan. Rat Maggot, yes?
What?
You just literally oh, high five. Yeah, so David becomes very closely bonded with Saul's son Jonathan, just as we saw in with Gilgamesh and Enkidu, just as if you take my classical studies course, you'll see with Achilles and Patroclus. Right now, David is number one in the eyes of King Saul. But he's also number one in the eyes of the people. And one day, Saul's going for a walk, and he hears the ladies of the town singing a song. And he thinks, ooh, awesome. They're going to be singing about what an awesome king I am. But instead, they are singing this song that I'm about to play for you. So if you are watching on YouTube, please continue watching through the next video in the playlist.